And good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios in Morristown, New Jersey. We got another solo guest today. We're really getting away from the panel format, but that's okay. Our guest today has been a full-time entrepreneur and investor since 2007. He also owns a sales and marketing company, runs a property management business, and is a minority partner in a point-of-sale software company. So this guy's pretty busy. He has a proven track record of building successful businesses, and each of his rental and or flips have realized higher than average returns, which is always good. He has renovated, flipped, or built or held 12 single-family residences and raw land with funds from private individuals and or with his own personal capital. He holds investments or shares in over 2,100 units across the country, and he's joining us from the great state of Washington. He is the founder and CEO of Sterling Rhino Capital, Chris Roberts. Chris, welcome.
Michael, thank you so much for the great introduction. Looking forward to sharing with the Morning Spotlight crew.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you on. I mean, after our initial phone call, I was pretty excited because, you know, just the energy, it seemed like we'd never met before. We're on opposite ends of the country, but it seems like we have a pretty good rapport already. So that's always good, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's learn a little bit more about you. So we're not going to get into the Sterling Rhino stuff quite yet. I just want to round you out as an individual a little bit more. So why don't you take us through, I was reading through some of your bios and stuff, but I want you to kind of take us through your life, early life, into kind of how you got to where you are now.
Great. So everyone has a story. I love hearing people's stories. I really draw a lot of energy off of people's failures and their successes. And I say that because when you interview someone or you talk to someone on the street or whatever, you see them at surface. You don't really have an opportunity usually to dive into who they really are. And my story is dynamic, but I would say that there's a lot of people that have stories similar. We don't hear them very often. And so my life started as a young person, struggling, standing in food lines, moving around a lot with family. Had parents that were 15 years old when they had me, and that was difficult for them. We moved all over Southern California, living with different family members and friends. And I just saw a different side of the world than I see now, which helped carve me into the person I am today. And so I try to draw strengths off of those challenges and other people's challenges as well. And then to encourage them that, you can do anything in life if you just focus. So at a very young age, I struggled. I was a young person trying to find my way. And then eventually, actually, ironically, went out on my own at the age of 15. And my parents had me when they were 15. And it's not a coincidence or anything. It's just I was very independent at a young age. And my mother had moved me out of Southern California into Southern Oregon and decided to move back. So I didn't want to go back to that area. It was a pretty rough area we lived in. And again, we're bouncing around with different people and just figured I would do better on my own. And so I started to build that sort of entrepreneurial spirit very early, matured very early, got in groups of friends that were a little bit older, and they kind of to help me understand, friendship, survival, teamwork. It's just it's hard to kind of explain, but when you're in that environment, it's different. You look at the outside world and you're like, well, look at these people working in these jobs and with these families and white picket fences or whatever. And you just have to sort of cut your teeth and survive and figure it out and stumble through. So that was my early life. And I had an opportunity to come across a mentor at about the age of 18. And he really took me under his wing and taught me the value of reading books and problem solving and a no excuse attitude. I would work up to 100 hours a week for him at his business that I eventually started working at. And then he would have me do side projects along with other people, but I was one of the few that actually would put in 100 hours a week. And so from there, built a sales and marketing career and then started getting into real estate. And today I own several businesses where I'm partners in several businesses and just looking forward to the future. So a lot of stuff there, but that's
Well, we'll pick apart each part of it. So sure. What was that business that your mentor, that was a sales and marketing business?
No, actually what's crazy is this is a great story. I'll make it really quick.
Yeah.
I was working at a hot dog.
We got all the time in the world,
It's all good, man. No, it's just a crazy story. People can't believe this. And I joke about it because I worked at a hot dog cart. Okay. So I was working 3 jobs, man. At one point I was working at a tanning salon. I was installing stereos. I was working at a hot dog cart. It's just crazy. And then the hot dog cart turned into a full-time gig, but I was making really good money, more than any of my friends, actually. People didn't realize the owner was retired and he just needed a certain amount of income. So making this great money. And I meet this guy at the hot dog cart and he's building this amazing fun center, which was a huge thing in the Valley at the time. And he says, man, I got to have a guy like you. And the short story is he basically just watched me for 3 weeks. And I didn't know that. And he said, I've watched your attitude. I've seen the way you treat customers. It's unbelievable. 50 people in line, and you just have a certain knack with people. You work so hard at this hot dog cart. It just seems, he said, it seems kind of ridiculous to me that you have such a positive attitude, because most people would be stressed, right? They'd be stressed out. They'd be freaking out. You got 50 people. He goes, but every week you're the same person. He goes, you treat everybody the same. You're cool and calm and collected. And I didn't realize at the time, but that was a very valuable trait that I had developed throughout the years, just dealing with people, because I had to do that at a very young age, right? Being out on your own and doing those things. So I built a skill set that I did not know would add a lot of value to the world later. He took me under his wing, offered me a great position, and then I went to work for him at this fun center, but didn't realize at the time he was a retired CPA, was a partner in a huge water park, owned a lot of real estate, was just an entrepreneur, and retired at the age of 44. So this is the guy who I was fortunate enough to cross paths with and cut my entrepreneurial teeth spirit on and drive forward. And then he is the one who propelled me eventually into going and developing a sales career. He actually said, we don't want to let you go. I'd love to have you here for the rest of your life, but I think you're not utilizing your skill sets being here. You need to go out and build a sales career. And I'm like, what? And that's how that started. So.
Yeah. Just all built off of hot dogs. I mean,
seriously,
I've built myself up with hot dogs, but that's a different kind of buildup.
Who doesn't love a hot dog?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, he encourages you to go out to the sales and marketing path. So where do you go after that? Like what was the next steps from there?
Yeah. So this is a lesson in, being a little too big for your britches and like stepping out and thinking, oh, I know it all. I'm young. I'm going to go conquer the world. So this janitorial company, I don't really tell this story often, but at that time, the transition was this janitorial company kept soliciting me from the fun center. And I no. And then when he kind of nudged me, I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. And the guy's pitching me the story on going out and selling the materials and the boxes and the whatever, you go and you set up the paper racks and all that, and you get like a commission. And he's telling me this base salary, which is pretty good. And then this commission where you could just make all this money. So I take this job.
That's how they get you. I think the commission thing is how they get you. As a salesperson, I get that. Go ahead.
I'm telling you, I'm used to making this salary, right? And he says, oh, you can make this extra just wide eyes. Okay. Yeah. I'm all ambitious. I think I was 20 years old at the time. So I go to work for this guy, and I work 4 days, 12 hours a day. And it was the hardest work. I mean, you're slinging these rugs, you're dirty. I mean, it was hard. I lost like 17 pounds. And I wasn't even a very heavy guy, right?
Yeah, right.
And I made literally like $9.37 in commission, right? After all this, after like a month.
Right.
And so I'm asking the guy, what's it, you got it. And I realized it wasn't what he promised. And I was really disappointed. So I left that probably 3 months after I had this great cush job. I knew the job. I loved the owners and the other managers and just worked really hard. I say cush in the way that I was comfortable there, right?
Yeah.
Hard work. But so I leave. And then I go and I'm picking up random jobs, 3, 4, 5 jobs. And at one point, I just realized, I've got to get back on track with what my mentor told me, which was find a sales career. There's something there. And another friend I met on a basketball court was managing a furniture store. And he said, you really should come work for us. I think you'd be great here. And he promised me a certain salary and said, we can start you on this. And then you'll go straight commission. And I thought, well, this is that leap, right? And this is actually a real opportunity because I knew the guy personally. Yeah. And from there, man, I really accelerated. I volunteered at first to get on the sales floor because they only put me in the warehouse, and I worked free on the weekends and then proved myself and earned my way into the sales floor, and then started making really, really good money. And from there got into management positions and then got a wholesale job, which was really where I accelerated, and so on and so forth. So that's part of it.
And this is all still in California, right?
No, I had moved up when I was 15 to Southern Oregon. So this is in Southern Oregon.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. What kind of jump was that? So like you're 15 years old, you're bouncing around quite a bit in California, in that environment that you had described before. So like you go out on your own, but how do you just decide like, I'm going to move to Oregon?
Great question. I don't know. My mother I'm young.
Yeah.
She's young and she didn't have anything in Southern California. Everybody struggled. We lived in a rough neighborhood. We were bouncing around and she just, she just decided I got to get him out of here. And her friends lived in Southern Oregon. She thought if I take him to a place where literally there's no one on the streets at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, people leave their keys in their doors, windows rolled down, unlocked. I mean, everybody was laid back there. It was a beautiful place we had visited many times when I was young. She would go on these long road trips. We'd pop in tapes of The Cure and just jam out, Mom and I. I mean, right? Yeah, it was great, man. And she just thought it was a safe place for her to raise me. But when she moved up there, she quickly realized that there just wasn't as much opportunity for her, and she wanted to go back. And I didn't want to go back. So I said I would live with the family friend. And about a week after she left, I just told them I'm out of here. And I bailed and I went and moved in with some buddies on their couch. And we just figured it all out from there, man. It was wild. Gotcha.
Okay. So we got you. You're in Oregon now. Now you have this wholesale furniture job. At what point does obviously you have the personality, energy on the sales end, but at what point does that start to materialize into like the entrepreneurial stuff?
Yeah. So again, one thing I've been fortunate in my life. Everybody has fear, right? But I learned really early on how to use that fear to drive me. And Jack Canfield says, everything you want is on the other side of fear. It's a great quote, right? And he's right. And so when I was young, moving to Southern Oregon was scary. How do you move to Southern Oregon? People joked about me getting jumped by, farmers with corn husks and stuff. And I'm like,
moose? Yeah, what? They have moose up in Oregon? Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Moose, yeah. Right. Yeah. Does it snow there? I mean, what is that? So I go there and as I settled in, I realized, well, this is just different. There's nothing to be fearful of. You just have to figure out how you can maximize the opportunity while you're there. Learn your environment, learn the people, and figure it out, and then hustle and just get people to want you on their team, whether you're trying to play on a football team, a basketball team at the park, or you're trying to earn your way into a job. It's all about just overcoming that fear and just earning the respect of others and earning that piece on the team, right? That place on the team. So as I moved up to Southern Oregon, here's another point about that age of 20. There was just not as much opportunity down there. And another buddy said, well, you should move up here to Portland. So he offers me an opportunity to go stay with him for a few weeks. I move up to Portland. I throw all my stuff in the back of this beat up 1982 Chevy pickup with primer on it. All my belongings in the back, right? Yeah, man. I just had the engine replaced. I had a loan I couldn't afford. I'm driving all the way up to Portland. The darn fan belt falls off and blows a hole through the radiator. I mean, I could tell you stories. So I finally dragged my way, beaten and rat tattered all the way to Portland, get my way into another furniture store. And that's really where I accelerated. So I'm selling, I'm earning. They give me a management position. And I start to build my confidence. And how I accelerated into the other, I guess, streams of income or professional field, which was the sales and marketing, was I heard that a sales rep was hiring an associate. And I knew that getting into the wholesale side of things was where I was going to exponentially grow, because you could only, you capped out on the sales floor, right? Or even as a manager. And I bothered this guy, interviewed with him. I bought one of those little suit in a boxes or whatever, it was like $67 with the whole tie and everything.
Right.
And way over prepared. And he says to me when we're done with the interview, he says, I didn't take a single note. And I'm like, oh, is that good or bad? And he's like, no, it's great, man. He said, you came so prepared. You had so many notes. You answered all my questions. He goes, I didn't even have to take notes. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you in about a week. I called the guy every day. And after a week, he still wasn't ready. I called him every day, literally. When he hired me, he said, I hired you because I didn't think you'd stop calling me ever if I didn't hire you, right? Got the associate position, eventually got my own territory. And that's really where I built the sales and marketing career, stepping stone from just selling on a floor.
Right. Okay, cool. So the one thing before we get into all the different businesses that you have a hand in right now, like I want to just like really focus in on like the childhood and like the growing up that way, like obviously I'm assuming not in school. If you're working 100 hours a week at a fund center, you're not in school, you're not doing anything like that. So like, how do you think that your perspective on life, kind of prepared you for how you went about your day? Cause it's easy to be, it sounds to me, it's easy to be cynical that way and just kind of like, just be like, screw this. I'm not doing anything, but it seems like you took the complete opposite approach and just went full steam ahead, like 100% of the time. So talk a little bit more about that.
I did. And it was, again, there was fear there because you see people around you finishing school, going to college, doing what appears to be the perfect American or life or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you're just trying to work your way through and survive and sort of figure things out. I mean, literally, I can remember staying in a 2-bedroom trailer with 4 people, and we're scrambling to try to find change for Taco Bell. Like every week it was a grind, and one of us maybe worked and had full time, and everybody hustled. You just had to figure it out. So the perspective for me was, I'm going to outwork everyone around me at some point. Like, I'm going to figure it out, but I have to keep hustling. I have to keep working. If I can outwork people, if I can swing the shovel faster and harder than someone else, I'll probably excel somehow. And that was all I had. So the attitude and the hustle. And as far as school goes, yeah, I was working at literally Wendy's at the age of 15, and then Orange Julius, and then this furniture store, and then sweeping floors and just doing whatever, tanning salons, you name it. And I was going to school still. And I did that all the way through the end of 10th grade, part of 11th grade, had to drop out, just couldn't do it. I couldn't survive. I could not pay bills and stuff. I rented a garage one time from someone's parents that had a fridge and sofas and stuff in it. And they just had me paying the power bill and utilities, but could barely make it because I'm working, at a Wendy's, right?
Yeah.
So as I struggled through that, I realized my work ethic is going to get me through. I don't need the formal education, but I kept trying. I went back, senior year, and I struggled. I never graduated high school. I actually went back later in life, got my GED, even volunteered as a reserve police officer, and took a course in a community college to prove that I could do it, and scored a 94 on my first, course or whatever, and prove that I actually could do it and had the skill sets later in life. But in order to survive and build my businesses and things early on, I just didn't have the time. It wasn't a best use of my time. Right. But I do value the importance. My wife has a master's degree. And so the perspective was, do whatever you have to do to survive, stay out of trouble, and keep grinding. And it's going to work out eventually. You can go back and fill in where you need to fill in. And that's what I did. And it worked for me.
Yeah. Was it hard to stay out of trouble for you?
It was not. I'm glad you asked that question, because no, it wasn't hard for me to stay out of trouble. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I was young, I fought a lot. You came across groups of kids and people, and you had to survive. You had to build your reputation. You had to be tough, right? And a lot of kids across America go through that, but it's not talked about a lot. So I was in a lot of scuffles, I did stay away from drugs. I stayed away from alcohol for the most part. I mean, you had a couple little drinks later on in life, which,
Sure.
isn't the best thing, but definitely never had alcohol problems or drug problems. Never did a drug in my life.
Yeah.
Never chewed, never smoked. And I think those things really helped me gain clarity on how to eventually build a life, build business, and make it through things, challenges specifically. So yeah, that's really what propelled me, was staying away from all the trouble and staying away from all the drugs. Other people did.
Yeah.
But the only way for me to survive and have clarity was to stay away from all that stuff.
Yeah. Because it's got to be tough. I mean, you're in that environment like you're talking about, and it's all around you all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be difficult. All right. So let's go back forward. And we're bouncing around a little bit, but we'll go back to, so your most, where we leave off at, you are working now at the wholesaler for the furniture.
I'm a wholesaler.
Yep. What is the first business that you start? Like, once you actually get, you're like, I'm going to go out and go on my own. What is the first thing that you do? Because obviously, like, sales itself is very entrepreneurial, at least in my opinion, because I'm in sales. Mm-hmm. But, there is something to be said for going out on your own, because then it's like you have no safety net. There's no team or whatever around you unless you bring them on. So take us through the next steps from that point.
Yeah. So again, just that early mindset of entrepreneurship, whether it be, I'm selling candy at school, I'm selling sodas at high school, or whatever it may be, a car wash. I did a lot of that stuff when I was young, and a lot of people dabble in that. As I got older and I was fortunate enough to come across this mentor, he showed me how you could build a business. He showed me the pro formas and the spreadsheets and things, and kind of laid it out in a way that made sense. It was like, oh, that's attainable. No matter who you are, you could go start a business, but you had to follow the data, right? So early on, it was very clear to me that if I want to own a coffee shop, let's say, I can't just go open a coffee shop because I like coffee. And that's a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make. They think, or business owners make, they jump into a business because they love it. But then you're not really in a business you love anymore. You're an employee, and you're hustling and you're grinding. And then you don't love it so much anymore, right? Because you realize it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. you might as well get a job and work 8 hours a day, right? So for me to build the business, it was go out and start an LLC because you're an independent contractor now. First steps, right? Okay, I get an LLC, great. Now I've got some tax advantages. I can maybe write off some mileage and things of that sort. Get yourself a good bookkeeper, a CPA, so they can keep you in line. And then you go out and you start building your business. Well, in my case, I was given a territory, and the territory had X amount of volume. And my job was to go out and grow the accounts. So go out and find new business, right? Cold call, work the business you have and increase it, and then just find other streams of income along the way. So you might have let's say a furniture line that you're representing, and then you might go out and get a furniture protection plan line that you're representing. Or you might go work for some advertising companies, because naturally when you're selling products, those people need to advertise the products.
Right.
And that's how I learned, okay, well, it'd be easier if they were dealing with one person, because most people are busy and they don't want to deal with 5 different reps, right? And that's really how I built the sales and marketing business. That's how it started.
Yep. Okay, great. All right. So I want to start getting into the Sterling Rhino stuff, because
Sure.
I mean, this is predominantly, not 100%, but predominantly a real estate focused podcast. But you know, there's more to it. I'm sure we're gonna touch on a lot of different other things. But take us through like what Sterling Rhino is, how it started. Is it just you? How does that all work?
Sure. Well, again, like if you want to scale in business, you have to be a good leader, in my opinion, and you have to have systems and processes, right? It does all start with a vision or a why, if you will. But in order to scale, you really need to put people around you that can help you scale, that have like mind. Like, okay, I want to succeed. Here's my strengths. Here's my weaknesses. How can I complement what you're doing? Okay, great. Well, we should partner together. Partnerships don't always work out. I've had several of them. Most of them have worked out, fortunately, but some don't. So it's very important to figure out if you're going to put a leg under the table with you, do you have the same kind of vision, goals, ethics, integrity, and so on and so forth, right? So with Sterling Rhino, the way Sterling Rhino came about was I had traded land, new construction, single families, duplexes, all kinds of different projects within the real estate world, and really wanted to sort of exponentially grow the portfolio. And the only way to do it, in my opinion, was to either get into mobile home parks, storage units, multifamily, or commercial. Those were kind of the things I looked at.
Yep.
And where I felt most comfortable was real estate, multifamily particularly, because I already had experience in duplexes and single families and things, and knew how that process worked, knew about the management, knew about the structure, the renovation costs and things of that sort. Whereas in commercial, you've got triple net and you've got, tenants, you've got to deal with long-term leases. Wasn't as comfortable. Not multifamily, but mobile home parks and storage units, again, didn't dive in a lot and thought, let's go down this road. So once I had chosen a particular segment of the real estate business I wanted to dive into, it was then about building the team. Because I knew that I could go out and probably raise some money to get together with a bunch of people, syndicate a deal, and buy a building.
Yep.
But could it be a 15-unit building, or could it be a 100-unit building? That was the difference in building the team and the systems. And my first deal was a 100+ unit deal, right? Then another 100+ unit deal, and so on and so forth. Only because I did the work in the beginning by building the team around me. There's 5 of us now. And then also putting in a lot of systems and automations and virtual assistants and outsourcing things that you just really shouldn't be spending your time on. Whereas you can now go out and source deals and work with investor relations and things like that. So
right.
That's how Sterling started.
Gotcha. So did you have, so you said you had worked in duplexes and single family homes, stuff like that prior. Was that just something like, you got a job in that area? Was it something that was an interest for you prior to starting Sterling Rhino? Or did you just kind of be like, I'm interested in real estate, and then just go for it? Because that's just, I wouldn't be surprised, because it seems like that would be something that would happen from you.
Yeah, it could have.
Yeah.
I'll digress and bridge the gap from where we left off earlier.
Yeah.
So here I am.
That's my bad. I should have done that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad you brought it. I'm glad you set it up that way, because that's it. We go all over the place. It's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So to bridge the gap, basically, as I'm making money in this sales field, my mentor always told me, you got to live below your means. I mean, this guy could have bought a Ferrari cash, and he drove a 91 Land Cruiser or whatever. It was all beat up, and the guy had tons of money. It wasn't ever about money. Like, it was about solving problems and about living below your means. So he always, he kind of instilled that in me early. And this is coming from a guy who had no money. So very easy for me to dive into that. As a matter of fact, when I first started making a lot of money, I bought a Rolex. I bought a new Audi. I mean, it was like, that's what you do, right? When you make money.
You made
and
it.
Then, yeah. I mean, you made it, right? And then 2 years later, I sold all that stuff. I'm like, what am I doing? This isn't me. Like, I'm smarter than this, right? No offense to anyone that owns that stuff, but I wanted my money to work. So I started saving. And on my first piece of real estate, I had saved my car payments for 7 years. And that's how I put the money down on my first piece of real estate, my first foreclosure. Okay. It was like $55,000 or something. I renovated it. And then 6 months later, boom, we bought another foreclosure and then renovated it and put it on the market. We're renting all these units. We start creating cash flow. So the way I got into it really was my first owned single family residence in 2006. Then years later, I was investing in the stock market. A friend of mine says, you need to be in real estate rentals. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We broke out these napkins. We start talking. And he really started educating me on the cash flow. And my mentor never talked to me about cash flow. He's a CPA. Put your money in the stocks, own a little real estate. He just never really dove into that. So my buddy brought that up and it just clicked. There are certain things that just make sense to me. And I thought, yes, the retire early or the wealth concept comes from cash flow. It doesn't come from net worth. And that he and I were going back and forth on this napkin. I'm showing him my stock numbers and I'm pitching him and he's pitching me. And when I walked out of there, we had lunch. And by the way, he wasn't selling me on anything. We're just having a conversation.
Right.
I went home and read 5 real estate books in like 2.5 months. And within about a month or 2 after that, I bought my first property. And that's really that bridge to getting into real estate. And I was hooked since. I mean, today we have like $20 million in assets and, hundreds and hundreds of doors. I'm passively invested in like 2,200 doors or whatever. And we're just getting started. I mean, we're very excited. But that's because of systems and processes. So
gotcha. Okay, great. So talk to us a little bit about like the, multifamily, obviously, but like how you go about syndicating a deal, setting up the deal, the type of stuff that you look for in a deal, because I'd be interested to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's lots of ways to get into the multifamily or scalable commercial real estate, if you will. And syndication is a great way to do it if you're going to use other people's money to help you buy these larger assets. You can do what they call a JV deal, where you might bring 4 people together and the 4 of you say put $100,000 each in, and you go buy $1 million asset. So 400,000, you're buying $1 million asset. Maybe it's 15 doors. Okay. That's a great way to do it because you have way less legal costs. You don't have all the investor relations stuff to deal with. You don't have the SEC to deal with really, and it's just an easier process. If you want to syndicate, you have to bring in all kinds. I mean, there's 120 pages of PPM documents, which is like subscription agreements and things, because you have to educate people on the risks that are associated with taking their money and putting it into this asset, right? So you general partners, so let's use that same example of the 4 people. Those general partners, instead of being the people who run the whole deal, they are now just partners on a deal as the GP group. And then they go and they find a group of investors called LPs, limited partners, and they all go together basically and buy this larger asset, which allows everyone to scale. And what that does is it allows the general partnership group to not only get a piece of the profits, but also to get some asset management fees and or acquisition fees on this larger deal. And the LPs don't care because they benefit from generally higher than average returns that you would see in the stock market or even with the single family residence without doing any of the work. So an example might be those limited partners could see anywhere from, depending on the deal, 14 to 18% annual returns, right? By the time you exit the deal in 5 to 6 years, and the GPs can make their share. And the LPs don't have to really do any of the work. So that's a syndication structure.
Right.
It's just a tremendous amount of work for the GPs to put that together.
Gotcha. Okay. So then so I know that we were just talking before we got on that you were just in Georgia, at one of the properties that you own. So how did you start expanding out so you're in Oregon, right? And I'm assuming
Washington now. Yeah.
Okay. Washington. Sorry. So you're in Washington. So I'm assuming most of your team is in Washington?
No.
Oh, they're all over.
That's what's great about this business.
That's great.
Let me go back to just one. I just want to make a point about something early in my life. So we talked about school and we talked about challenge. We talked about struggle. Here's the thing. I look at you today and I don't know a whole lot about you personally, like what your challenges were, the jobs you've had, how good you are at certain things. Like I look at you and I have to judge you based on the glasses, the shirt, the whatever, right? The beard, right?
It's all, you got to put the merch on,
the merch, right? But you and I vibe because of our attitudes, right? We were talking, and I'm like, man, I like this guy and I could probably do business with this guy because of his attitude, his energy. He's a guy I'd like to hang out with and do business with. I could sit in a boardroom with this guy or on the golf course or drinking a beer, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about real estate, it's the same kind of thing. You have to find people you want to do business with, and you have to find opportunities. Okay. I moved from Southern California to Southern Oregon for an opportunity to have a better life. I moved from there to Portland to have a better life. I moved from there to Washington to take an opportunity with a job to have a better life on my terms. Every time it was about, what do I need to do? What do I need to sacrifice? I have to throw my stuff in a truck and drive through fear to get to that opportunity, but I'm going to get there.
Yep.
Buildings are no different. Okay. I'm in Washington. I've got partners in New Jersey. I've got partners in Florida. I've got partners in Washington as well. But that doesn't mean that we can't do deals. And I think that holds people back.
Yep.
So what you need to do is say, okay, well, where is an opportunity? And then I'm going to put the pieces together to maximize that opportunity. Doesn't matter where it is. Same thing with a person that you might hire. Don't just look at that person's resume. Spend some time to get to know them, understand their value proposition, understand their ethics and integrity and how they would problem solve, and dig in a little bit because you might be passing up on somebody who could be an absolute rock star in your organization. Right. Same thing with a deal. Don't pass up on a deal because it's over in Georgia or Virginia or wherever. Just work hard and find a way to make that deal happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Just wanted to point that out.
No, I like that. It gave me me a little bit, warm and fuzzy feeling for saying something nice about me, which is always good.
Hey, man.
Yeah. So, I think one of the questions that I would have is so you're in Washington. I think this is kind of where I was going with it. Yeah. And you have this deal or this property in Georgia. I know you have a deal or a property. I keep saying deal, a property in Virginia. How do you find them? I think is it through partners? Like somebody that you would have here in New Jersey, hey, tell me if you have something that meets this criteria. Do you actually go out yourself and go look at them? How does that work? Because the episode that's actually going to air before this, that guy does a similar type thing, not syndication, but he invests in multifamily properties throughout the country, but has essentially partners throughout the country where they find different properties for him. And he doesn't really leave San Diego. He just stays there. Are you actually boots on the ground or are you having people do that stuff for you?
Yeah, I personally love being involved in every piece of it in the beginning, mostly because I find a lot of inefficiencies in everything. I've just, again, the mentor taught me, you've got to dive in, problem solve, trust, but verify, that kind of thing. So I just found a $3,000 mistake before the bill was paid just last night in a situation. I find things all the time, but it's because you're trusting other people to run your business, basically, right? Whether it's a property management company or a maintenance guy or whatever. So you have to have your fingers a little bit in everything, or have really, really good people that you trust and hold them accountable as you go through the process. So how do you find deals? Well, you build relationships with brokers, right? And you have to have we have a really good thought leadership platform on our website. We have YouTube channels. I've written a book. We've done a lot of stuff. So people look at us and go, those folks know what they're doing. Yeah. Right. So then they want to pass us a deal because they know we can close. So the key is finding those off-market deals. They don't care that we're across the country or local because they know we can close the deal. And we have the ability to bring a team of managers in there, whether they be local managers or people coming in from out of town, to run that asset. And then we have good systems as well. So how you find deals is building great relationships with brokers, shopping online, and then just going to these places sometimes and actually meeting with brokers and walking particular markets.
Right. Is there a particular market that you normally look in, types of markets, I guess?
Yeah, we like the Class C asset class is C, which is value add, usually a little bit lower in the rent, somewhere between $700 and $800, $900 a month in rent, give or take. Sometimes it's lower. And then there's a value add component where you can build up the asset. Maybe you can put new flooring in, countertops and such, so that you can raise the value of the building through rent increases, because commercial properties value is based on the income it brings in. It's not based on what sells next door. Yeah. So the ultimate goal is try to find something you can build up the value in to bring the value of the building up. And then that's how you exit years later with a nice profit. So yeah, we like the Southeast. we'll go to different markets, but we really like the Southeast, and we like the value add space, which is generally the C class.
Gotcha. Okay. And then so you said, I think we said it was like 2,200 units, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how many you have in your portfolio right now. And I know in the bio that, I just pulled that together from the stuff that you sent me, that you have the property management company. So do you also manage all of those same properties yourself?
Yes. Sure. So to clarify, I am passively invested in 22, 23, something like that, 100 doors.
Right.
So so like folks passively invest with me in deals, I am also passively invested in lots of deals all across the country,
Gotcha.
right? Texas, Florida, and South Carolina, and Georgia, and Virginia, all over. So that's how I really learned immediately how this process worked in multifamily, was passively investing, which is a great way to get your feet in the door, right?
Right.
Then we own hundreds of doors ourselves, which we do in most cases hire a property management company to come in and be on the boots on the ground, if you will. And you might pay $120,000 in overhead for that, but you have somebody full-time, you have full-time maintenance, and they're reporting back to you regularly. You have software and all that stuff. And then there's a company, like, for example, the asset we just closed, they manage 20,000 doors in the Southeast. So they're very well versed in multifamily. We trust them. They do a good job. And that's who manages our property there. But of course, we, the GPs, are the backup plan. If we have to fire someone, we have to fly in there. Somebody does, who is usually my asset manager, not me. And they will go in and figure out how to get a new person on board. So.
Gotcha. Okay, great. All right. So then let's talk about some of the other, kind of where you would like Sterling Rhino, where it is right now, like kind of your goals for it. Because it seems as though you have a guy that, would be into having goals, I would guess.
Yeah.
So where do you kind of see it going from here? Like, where do you hope to get it to?
Yeah. So my vision for the company is, and I know this sounds like kind of ridiculous because it has nothing to do with you. I've been very successful and effective in my life. I'm so blessed and fortunate, and I'm just grateful and thankful. And I want to share that success with other people. And the only way for me to do that is to educate people. And it's to add value on podcast interviews or in books or mentoring people. We don't have mentor programs currently, but I do share a lot of my time when I have it with anyone that needs it. Someone calls me from another mentor program, or an investor wants to talk about his portfolio or whatever, even if it's off topic of real estate. And so our ultimate goal at Sterling is to help people retire early on their terms. Okay. And the reason I say that, and not, Sterling wants to have 5,000 doors, because it's all relative. It's like, okay, I want 10,000 doors. I want $1 million a month in income or whatever. Who cares about that stuff? Like, we're going to get there. We're buying assets, and we're shaking and moving, and we got deals coming in. But how do we get there? Well, we get there by sharing, by educating people, by telling the world about what we do, and then bringing them in as limited partners with us. And then they get to learn how to go do their own thing in multifamily, or how to create a ton of passive cash flow with us. And so we have these great early retirement calculators we built, and we have webinars that we do where we just get on and talk to people. Hey, tell us about your story. Tell us how we can help you. What can we do to better your financial situation so you can retire early on your terms? And what's cool is 2 of my partners retired early. One just retired at 43. Okay, one of my Sterling Rhino partners. And that is exactly what we're doing. Now, me, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I love this stuff. I work a lot of hours because I'm in it. I don't know if I could do anything else. I don't know that I'll ever retire, but it's not that I couldn't, right? So our ultimate goal is to teach people how to do that and help them create lots of passive cash flow. Gotcha.
Okay, great. And then what are some of the other businesses? So we have Sterling Rhino, we have the property management company. I mentioned the I have to go back to the bio now. The point of sale, right?
Yeah.
Software company. What else? Like, what else are you doing? Talk about some of the other stuff.
Yeah. So it's funny. I invested a little bit of money to help my mom with something. I invested some money with my wife. She does this little ornament business. We have lots of hats in the household, lots of jobs, because we just love it. We hustle, right? My wife worked 3 jobs when she was younger. And so she has this great little ornament business. And then for me, I invested in software because I was on a charity board with a guy, and he had just sold his company for $120 million, right? And we're doing this charity stuff. And he says, I'm building this software company. You'd be a great guy to help start the sales department or whatever. Great. So I helped him develop a little bit of that. And then I'm really a passive investor there, but I started as an active investor. So I'm a 15% owner in that software company. And it's a point of sale, ironically, for fun centers, laser tag, water parks, things like that, tourism and all that.
Gotcha.
So that
that comes full circle.
It's
right?
really kind of interesting how that works out. He's a very successful software engineer. He's amazing. And he's out there really developing that business. So I give him all the credit in the world for that. And then my sales and marketing company, which pretty much kind of reps, marketing companies like cable and mailers and things like that. And then there's the sales field, which is still wholesale furniture and, furniture protection plans and things like that. And then we have many businesses, many LLCs on the real estate front. So I only put 2 to 3 assets in an LLC or an S corp as I build it out, just for legal and protection purposes. You want to make sure you diversify that. You don't have everything under one umbrella. And so those are businesses in themselves, as is the larger multifamily. Each one is a business. And so they run with different teams and or systems. And you have to have all the reporting, the P&Ls, the rent rolls, the whole. It's funny. People say, "Oh, I buy a building." No, you're running a business. There's a lot of dynamics there. So yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So I want to, one of the things that you sent over to me when we first met via email was the Feeding America stuff.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk a little bit more about that, how you got involved with that, the passion that you have for that organization. To take us through some of that.
Great. So Feeding America is close to my heart because they're one of the largest and they have a really good team of people and they're very efficient at feeding people. Okay. And obviously it's close to my heart because I stood in food lines when I was a kid and I saw that. I experienced it. Right. And for me, when I started, kind of figuring life out and had a little extra income, I wanted to give back. So I've donated to Wounded Warriors and City of Hope and other charities. But when I settled in and thought, where am I going to put all my weight? And I had written a book at that time. I wanted to donate all the proceeds. I thought I'm going to partner with Feeding America. So I did. I signed up as an enterprise partner, and every dollar that we donate, Tony Robbins also donates to match because he's an enterprise partner. And so Feeding America featured me. I'm actually on their national website. It's permanent. And they've got my story that tells the story of struggling as a kid and building a great life and a business eventually, and then wanting to give back. So I kind of tell my story there with the bio.
I'm looking at it right now. I have it pulled up right on this screen over here. Yeah.
It was such an honor, man, because I know that the money that we donate is making a significant difference because businesses like that were the food lines that we stood in, right? And what would we have done without them, right? So today, just based on book sales and donations, we fed almost, I think it's a little over 180,000 now people. And I mean, think about that. That's like 2 stadiums full of people, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, we're just insignificant, you and I. When you look at that, we're not insignificant. We can really make a massive difference. And I'm really excited. We have a goal of feeding 1 million people. We're going to get there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely at the pace that you're on now. So talk about the book. Tell us about what the book's about and what's it called. And I'll make sure I link it and everything. So
thanks. Yeah. So the book is You've Earned It, How I Refused Anything Less Than Success, and You Can Too. And I wrote the book for salespeople and young people that were coming into the business because all the stories, man, I love people's stories. I really am genuinely interested, right? They tell me these stories of struggle and strife and challenge and how they're just trying to make it. And so I started sharing some of my stories, and everyone was telling me, you should write a book with these stories. You should tell your story to inspire people. That's really what this book is about. It starts out at my very young age. It's about a 4-hour read. I have an audiobook, Spanish, ebook, all that, and paperback. And it goes through my youth into being jumped by gangs as a kid and being scared to death, trying to hide on my way to and from school, into moving all across the country and whatnot, and then building businesses. And I actually tell some real estate stories as well. So it pretty much encompasses my life up to about the age of 39 or so. I'm 43 today.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool. So I haven't written my book yet, but when I do, it's going to be a big success, I would imagine.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
So, all right. So the one thing I think I forgot to mention from before, a lot of people that listen to this show, the majority of them are in New Jersey, East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. But a lot of them are around my age. So I'm 30. A lot of them are between the ages of like 25 and 40, somewhere in that range. A lot of them are either, in the real estate field now, interested in getting into real estate. So like, what are some, let's start with just like some tips on like, your advice on how they should go about getting started in the real estate field.
Yeah, here's one of my top tips for people. I'll tell you now. The thing that I think most about is how society and the world, it's a paradigm. Basically, it's a reflection of the way we see things based on our experience. Okay, we all fall down that path. It's like habits, right? And I would encourage anyone to not judge people. It doesn't matter what your color is, what you look like, how you do things, or even the interaction you might have with someone. Don't judge. Just take the time to understand people. And there's a great book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and another one called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Those 2 books were early books I read that taught me the value of getting to know people and understanding their perspective. And that is so critically important if you want to be successful. It does not matter if you're opening a coffee shop, buying a UPS store, or buying a bunch of real estate. If you don't take the time to first understand people, right? But then also to understand yourself so you can get out of your own way, you can't be successful, right? And I say that because people might meet me on the street and have no idea that I own all this real estate, these businesses stuff. They might meet me and go, oh, this guy's got a lot of energy. He's a nice guy, great. But they might look at the clothes I wear or the car I drive or who knows what and pass judgment. And then they'll never get to know me and never maybe realize the potential of maybe a future partnership we might have. And right. I see that a lot in the business world. So I would tell anyone that's young, the first and foremost, don't judge people. Take time, get off your phone, stop playing on Facebook or whatever. No offense to Facebook, it's great, but talk to people like we're doing now. Understand their stories, their motivation, what inspires them. And you'll untap potential in yourself by doing that. It's truly amazing. So that's the number one thing. The second thing, which I touched on, was getting out of your own way. This is a big one. And I talk to a lot of people that are pretty successful in their life that maybe make $200,000, $300,000 a year, have some equity or whatever, but they don't even know what to do to get into the multifamily space. They are stuck in the kitchen, like looking online at stuff. They can't even see or have the vision to say, well, what are you really good at? Well, I'm really good at numbers. Great. Well, then you need to find somebody who's on a ground that can actually go and look at properties. Or I'm really good with people. Great. You need to find someone who's really good with numbers and so on and so forth. So I'd say don't judge people, get to know them and get out of your own way, and you'll be really successful in life.
Right. Okay. All right. That's good. Now, follow-up question. Mm-hmm. Let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, hey, I like this guy, Chris. I want to try to get involved with Sterling Rhino. How do I do that?
Yeah. So we encourage everyone to just go to our website and fill out your name and email. You can opt out if you want. It's not a big deal. We're not going to bite you. But you'll get a ton of newsletters that'll come through, like 2 or 3 a week. And again, you can opt out and they'll tell you all about what we do. It's automated. So it's got a lot of, there's a lot of really good content in there. But you'll get our downloadable calculator, which shows you the power of investing in real estate versus the stock market. And we've had 3 different CPAs dive into this thing. They love it. It's very accurate. And it doesn't even account for the massive tax benefits that you get. You will be shocked if you go down and play with this calculator at the type of returns you can see. So that's the first step. The second step is if you actually want to passively invest or get involved with us, we have to have a relationship with you, which means you have to fill out our Get Started tab and tell us a little bit about you. You get on a call with me, and then we're established after a while so that the SEC recognizes that we know each other to a certain extent, and we're not just bringing you in without you knowing what you're getting into. And That's how you get into the funnel to passively invest if you eventually want to do that.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So you gotta know you first. It's not
you have.
Here's money, take it, go do with it what you want. All right.
No, it's strictly regulated, and we like that. There's a lot that goes into it, and then of course you can check us out on YouTube or any of that stuff as well.
Right. All those links I will put in the show notes for everybody listening, and I'll remind that at the end. All right. So I think do we miss anything? I think I got to most of the stuff that we were supposed to talk about today. So is there anything I missed? Anything that we haven't touched on yet?
No, I would just say that, again, everybody has a story and there's so much more to every story, right? Yep. But just think about in your life. I just leave people with these encouraging words. Just think about in your life.
Do you want to go into the closing segment now? Is this?
Oh, no, if we're not closing, that's great. I just wanted to make sure from my story, the
Yeah.
encouraging words, and
Okay.
maybe not the actual close, but my story
Got it.
is I was very fearful at a young age, but I never let that hold me back, right? I just hustled and grounded out and just looked at everyone else and thought, you may have more money than me, you may have more education than me, you may be smarter than me, but you are not going to outwork me. And having that mindset at a young age literally carved out who I am today, along with the right mentors. So just from my story, I hope that you draw inspiration, that you really truly can do anything, but you have to outwork those around you to get there.
Right. Okay, cool. So, I mean, personally, I think that would have been a great closing segment, but we are now going to move the show into our closing segment, which is called Under the Spotlight, because this is the morning spotlight. So we've been talking for about 50 minutes. That's 50. So this is one of our longer one-on-one episodes, which I'm totally cool with because this has been just great from beginning to end. People have listened to us drone on about your story, my questions, all that kind of stuff for 50 minutes. What is one thing that you want them to walk away from this episode with? They're listening to Chris Roberts. What do you want them to walk away? Okay, I remember Chris Roberts said this. What is that one thing?
Yeah, I would say it's very important to focus on creating cash flow in your life. And whether that's, and it really boils down to cash flow, it's living below your means, it's creating multiple streams, maybe a little side gig or something. The reason for this is not the money piece, it's the freedom. Multiple streams of income and passive cash flow give you freedom in your life to spend time with your family, right? Your friends, and live a life the way that you want to live it on your terms. So I would just encourage anyone to educate themselves, whether it's multifamily or businesses or whatever, and try to focus on how do I create multiple streams of income with passive cash flow? That is, at least in my opinion, the key to freedom in life, because then you can do the things you love and it's not about money.
Gotcha. Great. That was even better than I thought we were going to do. All right. So that is going to wrap up our show. We're going to thank Chris after. I just want to make sure that I remind everybody that all the stuff that we just talked about, so all the links to Chris's businesses, the book, the Feed America, the Sterling Rhino, everything is going to be in the show notes. His email address will be in there too. So make sure if you have questions, if you want to reach out to him, you do so. Because obviously he was very gracious to come on my show. We've never met before, but this worked out great. If you want to be a guest on the Morning Spotlight, or if you want to hear us talk about a specific topic, make sure you email me at themorningspotlight@gmail.com, or go to our website, themorningspotlight.com, fill out the form, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Chris, thank you again for coming on. This was awesome. Couldn't have done it without you, obviously.
That's great, Michael. Thank you so much. And I hope I added value to the Morning Spotlight crew. If you guys ever need anything, please reach out. We love helping people. Same thing to you, Michael. Please reach out. This has been a great interview, and I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And everybody else, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.